The Chargers have another chance to save their season on Sunday, but they're going to need Justin Herbert to jumpstart this offense to get the win.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer. We've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, making us your first listen today, and to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, we got to get into this Chargers-Broncos game, which is essentially an elimination game for the playoffs for both of these football teams. On offense, we got to tell you why it is very important that Justin Herbert gets back on track. Only 1 touchdown in his last 2 games. He has to perform at a high level in this one. And on defense, you have to make sure you know where Courtland Sutton is at all times. He is the biggest part of the Broncos offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think, their entire offense has kind of been up and down this year, but Russell Wilson, surprisingly, not exactly cooking over the last 7 or 8 games. So we're going to talk about all of that. But I do have to tell you guys that this episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Before the show a little bit, I placed an order 2 wings and things through DoorDash to see if I could get it delivered to me during the show today. I'm so excited about it. And make sure that you guys place your order today using promo code LOCKED23. Stay tuned later in the episode to hear more from our friends at DoorDash. So, David, so many times we put so much on Justin Herbert as, the franchise quarterback. And, you referred to just 1 touchdown over the last couple of games. And I think it's hard because it's not super indicative of his play, right? Like a lot of other things have happened where the Chargers should have been putting up much bigger numbers, especially last week against the Patriots. But turnovers against the Ravens, 3 fumbles in that game. And then obviously in the last game, you have 6 different drop passes, basically 6 different drive-ending, drops that happen for them. But let's be honest, like if the Chargers offense is going to figure things out, it's going to be Justin Herbert doing it, right? They haven't scored more than 20 in their last 3 games. They've scored 16 points over their last 2 games. That's 8 points per game, right? And 12 points per game over the last 3. So it is going to be up to him, fair or not, to do whatever it takes, and be sharp against this Denver Broncos defense to get this team going.
Absolutely. I mean, I love the fact that Justin Herbert gets an opportunity to go back home, play in the friendly confines of SoFi Stadium, out of the elements in the month of December. So, he can, get an opportunity to get back on track. I mean, he's going up against a defense that, over the course of their, 5-game winning streak created a ton of turnovers. So he's going to have to protect the football. He's going to have to make smart decisions, and he's going to have to move the ball down the field and make some big plays.
He will, and I think, sometimes that's him having to take off. We did talk yesterday with Sarah Benninger, who said, hey, the Broncos do have some very athletic edge rushers, and they do, so it might be a little harder for him to kind of break, contain, and use his legs, but it just feels like it has to be him that gets it done, and unfortunately, him getting it done hasn't always gotten the Chargers wins, but at the same time, it feels like that's the baseline of what the Chargers will need in this game, and I think that as much as it is him, he also needs the guys to catch passes thrown their way, right? And the offensive line has to give him a chance to get rid of the football. But I think for this game specifically, it's just it's hard for me to imagine the Chargers win this game without a big game from Justin Herbert. And I think the hard part is the Broncos' pass defense is actually better than their run defense, which we'll get to. But I do want to touch on what you said about taking care of the football, because the Broncos' offense does give up a ton of yards, David, but the way they thrive and the way they won those 5 games in a row is by taking the ball away and kind of covering up some of the deficiencies they have defensively.
100% correct. I mean, over the course of the Broncos' 5-game winning streak, they won the turnover battle in every single one of those games. Their turnover margin was 14-3. So it's a huge part of how they win football games. And a lot of those turnovers were fumbles. They created 8 fumbles in those 14 during that 5-game winning streak. So the Chargers absolutely need to make sure that they protect the football. Do not give any short fields to this offense. Do not allow them to try and take over the game. And then for the Chargers offense, protect the ball. Don't give it away. Sustain drives. Score points. Because you lose the turnover battle, then you're going to lose the football game. For the Chargers, that is very true. When you look at their record, when they win the turnover battle, they are 5-1 this season.
Yeah, the turnover battle is going to be huge as it is, and we'll talk about the Chargers actually taking the ball away because they've been very bad at that over the last month. But going deeper into that, I mean, every win that the Broncos had, they forced a turnover, right?
Yeah.
4 of the 5 games during that 5-game winning streak and 5 of the 6 wins they had this year overall, they've created multiple of them. The 3 teams that haven't turned the ball over against the Broncos are 3-0, right? Like, so sometimes it's as simple as that, and I think when you're looking at just the last 4 wins for the Broncos, it's 14 takeaways.
14,
right?
14-3.
That's crazy. So, I mean, I think that actually, I had 15 takeaways just in the last 4 games and 1 before that. So I think it might be even more than that. But their last 4 wins, 15 combined takeaways. So, like, that's what they've done. It's covered up a lot because this defense is giving up the 2nd most yards in the entire NFL. But the reason they've been able to get away with it is because they're taking the ball away. Meanwhile, Justin Herbert, right, only 2 interceptions in his last 6 games. He does have a fumble in there too, but basically he's only averaging half a turnover a game right now, which is elite level stuff as far as taking care of the football. So it has to keep going. The next key I have here, David, has a question mark at the end of it. Feed Josh Kelley, right? This is something that came up this week with Brandon Staley asking if Josh Kelley could start getting more touches offensively, especially running the football, because let's be honest, neither him nor Austin Eckler has been good, but I think the exclamation point was put on that last week with how bad it was and how tough the sledding was. But, like, I'd like to see Josh Kelley get some run here because the Broncos are giving up 5.2 yards per carry on average this season. Like, that's insane. That's Chargers 2022 level bad run defense. And the hard thing is, David, I just don't have a ton of faith that the Chargers are going to exploit it. Like, if you're trying to exploit the weakness of this Denver Broncos defense, you run the football. Unfortunately, the Chargers have had sweet matchups like this before and not been able to take advantage.
Yeah, the most yards per rush attempt and the most yards per game on average given up in the NFL for this Broncos defense. And more specifically on the running plays, I want them to do runs that you know your running backs have success with. For Austin Eckler, around the left end, he is running for 5.6 yards per carry, and he has 3 runs of 10-plus yards. And also behind the right guard, he has a 5.2 yard per carry average. For Josh Kelley, he likes to run behind the left guard. He runs for 7.2 yards per carry on 13 carries for 94 yards, and behind the right tackle, 12 for 59 for 4.9 yards per carry. Let's set up running plays that you already know that your running backs have success given those specific parameters there. You already know that you're struggling a lot getting this running game going. You have a good matchup. Make it an even better one by putting them in situations they've had success this year.
Yeah, and I think for the Chargers, the biggest thing that you don't want, them to get in their own way with is just, it doesn't mean you have to come out and run the ball 3 straight times when you open the game, right? Like, to open up the run, like, you're still going to have your opportunities to run the football, but you can't just do it in the most obvious situations. You can't just do it on 1st and 10 and just take, 5 drives where you're starting out on 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 10 because the first run doesn't go anywhere.
It's killer.
Such a hard thing to do and to contain or continue and keep your offense going when you're behind the chains and behind the sticks every time. Like, I hate that this team lives for 3rd downs way too often, right? But at the same time, when you're running the football, you have to be selective. You have to set it up, and you have to use your guys in what they do best. But honestly, I think a lot of it, too, is just like the offensive line has to be better because they haven't been opening up any holes. But both of the last 2 games, there have been a handful of snaps where the offensive line is opening something up, and the guys aren't hitting the hole. And that is most frustrating because there's so many different parts of why this running game can't work. But this is a game with your season on the line where the other team has a terrible run defense. Find a way to run the football. Like, this inept running attack has been so bad. And I know Justin Herbert's going to have to be the one that jumpstarts this thing, but the Chargers rushing attack, it's now or never for them. Because if they don't take advantage of this matchup, how can you be confident they're going to take advantage of any matchup for the rest of the season? But we do have to get into our defensive keys for success. And to me, it's don't let Russ get right? The Chargers have been a get-right team for way too many quarterbacks, way too many starting quarterbacks, at least I should say, right? Don't let it happen because Russ hasn't been great so far this season, and if they can keep him down, there's a good chance they win this game. We're going to get into that coming up right after this. All right, you guys didn't see it or hear it, but I had to pause the podcast for a second because I had a very, very special delivery. And today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash, and I haven't been so excited or so hungry during a podcast as I am right now because, look, for those who can't see, I have a full-blown DoorDash bag with me right now, full of wings and things, epic wings. They're in San Diego is where I got mine, but they also have some in Los Angeles as well. 4-piece tender combo, 2 breadsticks. I go ranch. I'm not a blue cheese guy. You can't hate me for that. But that's what DoorDash can do. I put that in right before the podcast. It came during the podcast, and now I can't wait for the podcast to get over, frankly, because I can't wait to eat this food. But that's why DoorDash is perfect for footballs and perfect for Sundays. Because when you're watching football, you don't always have time to go get the groceries or the restaurants that you want to go to. Get them delivered right to you, and you can save some money. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change. Terms apply. But again, that's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change. Terms apply. I also need to tell you guys about a new exciting sponsor because on this show we get into a lot of in-depth analysis and takes, right? Well, let me give you the hottest take of the day, and that's the best lineup in LA right now is the lineup of auto loans at Logix. They start off the top with the favorites, the proven, dependable, new and used vehicle car loans. You can count on these guys to give you low rates and save you big-time bucks. Next up, they've got exciting new rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loans with super low rates and flexible payment terms. Rounding out their lineup, they've got the auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. With these guys, you can lower your monthly payments and get on the road to owning your car faster. Look, I know it's a hot take, but seriously, no one can beat the lineup at Logix. Visit your local Logix branch right here in LA in the surrounding area and let one of their amazing team members help you or apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com/car. That's LOGIX banking.com/car. All right, David, well, it's time to get into our keys for success on the defensive side of things here because the Chargers offense should be able to, put up some yards in this game offensively. It'll be whether they can score points. Defensively, I think for the Chargers, if they can keep going, if they can build off 2 very strong performances, right? The Chargers are allowing 10 points per game over their last 2. We saw them absolutely shut out the Patriots last week, and I thought for most of that game they put together a pretty remarkable performance against the Baltimore Ravens and one of the best teams in the NFL. But for me, it starts with not letting Russ get right against you. Russell Wilson has thrown for less than 200 yards in 7 of his past 8 games. That's crazy. I mean, that's not, they've figured things out offensively. I'll tell you that. That's not him and Sean Payton clicking on another level, right, to where they can't be stopped. But if you want Russell Wilson to have to beat you, you have to get back to being that dominant run defense that we saw for the first, half plus of this season, right? I mean, the Chargers had a really, really good run defense, and all of a sudden, 100 yards or more in 4 straight, 148 rushing yards or more in 3 out of 4, and the Broncos are a team that'll punish you if you let them, right? The Broncos have rushed for 30-plus times in 4 of their last 5 games. The only game they didn't was the Vikings game where they got way behind early. So if you want to contain Russ and keep him down, I think that's where it starts.
Not only that, but when you're able to stop the run, you're able to limit the effectiveness of the play action. And for Russ, that's a place where he has really had a lot of success. On play action this year, he's thrown 8 touchdowns and 1 interception and is 7.9 yards per attempt, which is the highest out of any of those categories, whether it's screen or play action or just kept clean. He has had the most success in play action. So you limit the effectiveness of the running game, then you in turn limit the effectiveness of the play action.
Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, that's a big part of their offense is getting those play actions. And I think if you can get them off schedule like that, what you're going to be able to do is get off the field on 3rd down. And the Chargers have been, Brandon Staley got mocked, I think rightfully so for talking about how good his 3rd down defense was early in the year, not talking about how defensive penalties had actually wiped out a big portion of that. And they are actually very average to below average as the 3rd down defense. But all of a sudden, David, the 3rd down penalties have stopped. right? That's been huge over the last couple of games.
It has.
In the last 2 games, Chargers have held their opponents to 8 of 27 on third down. That's converting at a 29.6% rate.
That'll work.
A big part of that is, the Patriots offense, of course, but the Patriots are 4 of 14. The Ravens are 4 of 13, right? So it's been really good over the last couple of games. That's how you're going to win this game, by stopping some of those possessions, getting off the field on third down, and it starts with getting them behind the sticks.
Yeah, and the Chargers have done an excellent job of being able to blitz on third and fourth down to be able to get off the field.
Getting Derwin there too.
Yeah, I believe they have the most sacks in the NFL on third down this season. So once they get into those third and long situations, at least as of late, they've done a much better job of being able to get off the football field. And when they are trying to look for a weakness on the Broncos offensive line, you got to look at the right tackle, Mike McGlinchey. He's definitely the weakest link on the offensive line. He's given up 42 pressures, 7 hits, and 5 sacks this season. And the Broncos offensive line is very good. Per PFF, they rank number 6 in pass blocking efficiency, and they're tied for the 8th fewest sacks allowed that were attributed to offensive linemen. So they've done
a
very
lot of
good
those
job.
sacks are attributed to Russell Wilson. So the PFF numbers are not going to match what you see on Russell Wilson's sack total, right? I mean,
They definitely do not. I mean, you look at those numbers, it's only like 9 sacks given up. You look at the Broncos sacks given up, it's like 36. So I was trying to find that disconnect. That didn't make a lot of sense to me when I was trying to do research on this, but it's just because of Russell Wilson scrambling or him holding on to the football and stuff like that. So, but yeah, you definitely want to attack Mike McGlinchey, try to put Khalil Mack on him as much as possible to try to utilize and exploit the best matchup possible to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, on those downs, on those big downs, one of the big parts of it is going to be accounting for where Courtland Sutton is, right? Because he has been their big playmaker so far this year.
That's it, 100%. He's the guy that is like the Chargers' Keenan Allen. It has the majority of the target share. It's 75 targets. The next closest person to him is Jerry Jeudy with 57, 637 yards, and 9 touchdowns. There is no other player on the Broncos offense that has more than 3 touchdowns this season. So he is definitely the guy that you need to identify on every snap where he's at. And you need to make sure that you have help over the top, so you can't let him kind of take the top off the defense. Russell Wilson still throws a very, very good deep ball. He is a guy that puts plenty of air under it. So the Chargers secondary safeties, they need to have the proper respect for that ability to make sure that they do not get burned over the top.
Yeah, and I think if, the Broncos make it into the red zone, don't let Courtland Sutton beat you, right? Like, if you can stop the run and not let Courtland Sutton get into the end zone, a good chance you're holding them to 3 points there, right? And in a game like this, I think that we both expect to be a close game, a game that FanDuel has the Chargers as 2.5-point favors in. That could make the difference, right? We're talking about a 4-point swing and a spread that's 2.5 points. I mean, that's it right there. I think the other big thing, in a way the Chargers could kind of ensure that they win this game, is forcing some turnovers. And it sounds so simple, right? And it's not. But the Chargers have been really bad. And I think the Broncos, if you're looking for a reason why it's so important, have covered up a ton of their defensive inefficiencies and all the things that have going wrong defensively with a bunch of takeaways that have made them a pretty good defensive unit over the last 6 weeks or so. So Russell Wilson has 7 interceptions, but also 7 fumbles. The Broncos are tied for the third most fumbles in the NFL this year with 15 fumbles, right? Woo. That's like 1.3 fumbles per game. So the Chargers have to get one on the ground in this one. They have to be able to come up with it. In this, David, the Chargers have only 1 takeaway in their last 4 games. Not good enough, right? It's just simply, it was Tooley last week forcing the fumble and recovering the fumble. The Chargers haven't had an interception. Do you remember the last time? It's a long time ago. I wouldn't blame you if you can't remember that long ago.
Was Derwin James against the Bears?
Yes, it was the Bears, and it was 2 interceptions against Tyson Bagent.
Yeah.
That was 5 games ago.
That's crazy.
The Chargers have gone 5 straight games without an interception, David. If they can turn the ball, if they don't turn the ball over, it's going to be very hard for them to win this game. If they can get a couple, I'd feel a lot better about it.
Well, I mean, like I said, I gave you guys the numbers earlier. When the Chargers win the turnover battle, they win. They're 5-1. So it's directly tied to wins and losses. You're able to turn the ball over, you're able to give Justin Herbert more opportunities to score, then you are going to set yourself up to be in a very good position to win this football game, in a game you absolutely have to have.
Yeah, both teams do, right? I mean, it does look like at this point, if the AFC keeps beating each other up, maybe a 9-8 record gets you into the playoffs this year. But for all intents and purposes, the Chargers want a shot, especially with how poorly they started in the AFC specifically and how the tiebreakers are going to work out at the end. They got to get this game. It's as simple as that. We're going to get into our bold and our game predictions and tell you if we think the Chargers can get this done. I don't know if I can pick them to win this game, David. It feels like a huge game, and it feels like anytime the Chargers have had a chance to write their season, they haven't been able to do it, and they've squandered it. So we're going to get into if we think it can happen coming up right after this. First, though, I need to tell you guys about Prize Picks, which is daily fantasy made easy. With Prize Picks, it's super simple. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less than their projected stats, and place your entry. The more entries you hit on, the more you win. If you hit on 6 entries, you can win up to 25 times your money. This is basically as simple as it is, right? You can go with Keenan Allen going for more than or less than 86.5 receiving yards this weekend. If you pair that with Justin Herbert throwing for more or less than 256.5 passing yards, and you get both of those, you win. If you want to get crazy and you want to keep that multiplier going, you add on Austin Eckler combining for more or less than 80.5 rushing and receiving yards. If you think it's going to be a Josh Kelley game, maybe you go less than on that, right? And they always have great promotions as well, like Taco Tuesday. You can get a 25% discount on certain projections on Prize Picks and get even better value. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code LockedOnNFL for that deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, David, well, it's time to get into our bold and our game predictions and tell you some guys or maybe something the Chargers will do as a team that will seem outlandish going into this week. I feel pretty good about mine as far as being bold and something that we won't see coming. But I do need to tell you guys that you have to check out something very cool because right now the Chargers have the only 24/7 sports channel streaming on YouTube right now. It's something that has been going on for a long time. You can also find your local LA sports channel going 24/7 on YouTube right now. But make sure you guys go check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So, Dave, let's get into our bold predictions here. When you're trying to get bold and you're trying to get crazy for this matchup against the Broncos, where are you going to start offensively?
Well, I mean, I think there's no more bolder offensive bold prediction than putting it on the running performance that we are going to see.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it has to be. I think for this one, we're going to see something we have not seen in a very, very long time, and that is the Chargers running backs, specifically the running backs, are going to run for 150 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in this football game. That is my offensive bold prediction.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. It'd be bold more so because it's the Chargers than anything else because obviously they're going against the worst run defense in the league.
If
right?
not now, it
yards
is
per carry.
not going to happen.
Yeah, I had some. I was thinking something similar. I had 12 carries for 75 yards and a 30-plus yard touchdown for Joshua Kelley. I think Joshua Kelley could get it going this week. Maybe, it seemed like Brandon Staley hinted at, hey, we're more open to giving him a bigger share. Obviously, we saw him get a bigger share when Austin Eckler was out, and it wasn't like it was groundbreaking. I'll change it up, though, since you went with the running game. I'm going to say that Keenan Allen gets Pat Surtain the second on about, 60-70% of the snaps, and I think he still puts up a buck anyways. I have Keenan Allen going with 8 catches for 115 yards in this game. Good matchup,
It is.
Premier matchup, elite corner going up against who has been one of the most elite receivers in the league. And I think Keenan Allen's going to get his share of wins in that one. Let's go to the defensive side of things here, David. Where are you going to go?
Yep, so my bold prediction on this one is going to be for Asante Samuel Jr. Okay. I think Asante Samuel Jr. is going to pick off Russell Wilson twice in this football game. He is one of the bigger boomer bust type of cornerbacks in the league. I feel like he's going to get some good jumps. He's going to take some chances, and those chances are going to pay off in this game to the tune of 2 picks. And I'll even make it even better. One of those is going to be a pick 6.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be bold. Obviously, we just told you guys the Chargers don't have an interception in their last 5 games. So it'd be great to see that. I did have that as one of mine. Michael Davis returns to the starting lineup and gets a pick 6. I think that would be pretty bold. I'll go with something different, though. I'll go with Khalil Mack gets 2 sacks for the 4th straight game, gets to 17 sacks on the season, forces a fumble, but also crosses the 100 sack threshold. Khalil Mack goes into this game with 99.5 career sacks. He could pass it in a Chargers uniform on Sunday, sacking Russell Wilson. It doesn't get much better than that.
What a milestone.
I think Khalil Mack gets it this weekend. I think Sunday he will be one of the very, very elite few that have ever had 100 sacks in the NFL, and that is quite an accomplishment. So let's get into the score predictions here, David. I did not give my score on the crossover episode anyways. I'm really, really struggling to trust this team, and it's hard for me to kind of ignore, hey, you lost 3 games in a row, and you beat the 3-10 Patriots now after beating the Steelers. Thanks to the Patriots for that one.
Appreciate
the Chargers needed that to happen. And I just, for this game, it feels like it's going to be tight. And I just don't know if I can trust the Chargers in those situations because they haven't consistently come through. So I'm picking the Broncos in this one. It's kind of at a prove it point for me because the Chargers so many times have had chances to keep their season alive, to kind of turn things around a little bit, to crawl out of the hole that they dug themselves in early on. And time after time again, whether it's Packers, right, or any of the big games they've gone into this year, they have not been able to come through. So I have Broncos 27, Chargers 24, hoping that they prove me wrong, hoping that they can prove they can finish a game where, they did last week against the Patriots, but failed doing it against the Lions, the Packers, and the Ravens the 3 weeks before that. So, David, do you think the Chargers can get off the schneid here, right? Actually beat a Broncos team that I think is playing a lot better at this point in the season?
Yeah, we'll see. So for me, first of all, the Chargers are wearing one of the absolute sexiest uniforms in the NFL this Sunday when they're wearing their royal blues. For those who are not watching the podcast and are listening, I'm rocking my royal blue and my royal blue hat, of course.
And it's a Jerry Tillery jersey.
It is not a Jerry Tillery jersey. You know darn well it is a Joey Bosa jersey. But
Joey Bosa number 99 jersey. For those who don't know, for the newbies out there, Joey Bosa, in his rookie season right early on, he was number 99 before Jerry Tillery besmirched the good number.
Yes. Ah, man, how did he ever do that? But I like the fact that this game is at home for the Chargers. I feel like this is a game where they're going to be able to get their offense rolling again. I think it's going to be kind of a get-right game in that aspect, and I think they're going to get it done. I know I shouldn't have any confidence that they're going to get it done, but I feel like their defense is starting to peak. Just like last year, they were starting to peak at the right time. I feel like that is going to carry over. That positive momentum is going to carry over. They're going to get the win. They're going to keep their playoff hopes alive. It is going to be Chargers 28, Broncos 21.
Yeah, I mean, a 7-point win would be pretty surprising. It does feel like it could come down to that and be kind of one final drive to win the game. But hey, if you had a lot of faith in the Chargers winning every game, you'd be pretty disappointed so far this season, right? I mean, I think I get it. I definitely understand the optimism. This is a game the Chargers can and should win, honestly, at home. The game in Denver will probably be a little bit different, but this is the team that you have 2 out of your last 5 games.
Yeah. You
basically have to win all of your last 5 games, and this is the team you're playing twice. You're also playing the Raiders, right? Another one where you've at least beat that team. How you play against the Broncos is going to be a huge deciding factor in how this season ends. And the Chargers have to go show they can get it done at home because this is going to be the easier of those 2 matchups. The later in the December it gets, the later in, the closer to Colorado you get, it's going to get a lot tougher. So the Chargers should be able to get this done this weekend. Hopefully they do, because we will be back with you guys for a live show, 1:25 kickoff Pacific time this weekend. We will be back for a live show after that game, so make sure you guys tune into that. Win or lose, we will have a live post-game show, and to make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, right? And also listen wherever you get your podcast from. You can also find the show on all of our social media. You can find us on Twitter at Locked On LAC. You can find us on our Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page as well. You can also find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogemeyer at DroTalkSD. But this thing could stay alive, guys. We could be here Sunday night talking about what's next for this Chargers team, or they could let us down as they've done for a lot of this season. But hey, if you want to prove you can be serious and you can actually make some noise down the stretch, it starts Sunday and it ends after that game with our Locked On Chargers post-game live show. So make sure you guys are back here for that. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.